Welcome back to the Coach Momentum podcast with Karen Capello. Over the last few episodes, we've been looking at your business from a different perspective, one that's grounded much more in how you think and engage than in what you do. We've talked about conversations, about decisions, about what happens when you stay in the moment where something actually matters, and how those small shifts begin to change everything. And I want to talk to you today about something that I hear often. There's a sense that confidence is the missing piece in these conversations. That if you felt more confident, you would show up more clearly, you would say things more directly, and you would move conversations forward more easily. And that's an understandable conclusion because confidence feels like the thing that would make everything else work. And what I've seen over time is that confidence is almost never the place to start. It's something that develops as a result of something else being in place. What's actually missing is a way of operating. This is the easiest to see when we look at your coaching. When you're coaching, you're not thinking about confidence. You're not asking yourself if you're doing it right. You're not trying to remember what to say next. You're simply present in the conversation. You know how to listen, you know how to stay present, and you know how to focus on what's emerging. That didn't happen because you decided to feel confident one day. It happened because you learned how a coaching conversation works. You began to recognize patterns, you practiced, you stayed with it, and over time it became natural. Your business is no different. When there isn't a clear way of operating, every conversation can feel slightly different. You find yourself deciding in the moment what to say, how to respond, whether to move forward or not. And in that space, confidence is going to naturally rise and fall because there isn't anything consistent to rely on. I remember working with a coach who described this very clearly. She said that some conversations felt strong and easy, and others felt like she wasn't quite sure where she was or what she was doing. And when we looked more closely, what became clear was she didn't have a consistent way of engaging in those conversations. She was relying on instinct. And instinct can take you far. It doesn't create the consistency when you're building a business, though. So we began to look at the conversations themselves, how they started, how they opened, where something meaningful became visible, where a decision could emerge, and more importantly, how she could recognize those moments as they were happening. Once she had something she could see and return to, everything began to settle. Her conversations became more consistent, she knew where she was, she knew what mattered, and very quickly her confidence began to rise. And it wasn't because we worked on confidence. We worked on her way of operating in the conversations. This is what I want you to take in. Confidence is not something you wait for before you act. It's something that develops when you understand how to move, when you can recognize what's happening in a conversation, when you can see the moment where something matters, and when you know how to stay with it. You don't need to rely on how you feel in that moment. And this is especially true for the leaders you're here to serve. They're not responding to confidence in the way we often think. They're responding to clarity, to presence, to someone who understands what's happening. And that comes from having a way of operating. So if you've been noticing that your confidence feels inconsistent or that some conversations feel strong and others don't, I invite you to look at this differently. Where are you relying on feeling confident instead of having a process that you can rely on? Where are you approaching each conversation as if it's new and unique instead of recognizing that there's a pattern there? And what would shift if you had a way of engaging that you could return to again and again, regardless of how confident you felt that day? Because once that's in place, something changes very quickly. You stop second guessing yourself, you stop overthinking what to say, and you begin to trust the conversation in a different way. And confidence follows as something that naturally develops. So as you move into your next conversations, just begin to notice what's actually happening. Notice where the conversations open, notice where something becomes important, and notice what changes when you stay with it instead of moving past it. That's where consistency comes from. And that's what allows your business to grow in a way that feels steady, clear, and aligned with who you are. You don't need more confidence. You need a way of operating in conversations. Once you have that, everything begins to feel different. I'll see you in the next episode. Meantime, wishing you success with ease and joy.